All right. Hello. Welcome, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks for spending your Saturday morning and evening with me today. Hopefully, this session will be 35 minutes of presentation and then more Q&A. And I would also be asking some questions throughout the session. So if you can use the chat option to provide your answers, it will help me also to understand a little bit about yourself too. So this topic today is about design thinking, how we use to innovate, build products, as well as transform businesses. So before I go into this, I'd like to thank Ali and team at Paklaunch for inviting me for conducting this session. Really excited about it. See that a lot of folks have joined, so really appreciate your time spending with me today. This topic is not about like technical aspects of design thinking. This is more about conceptual and mindset that I will be sharing today. And also will be highlighting the importance of why innovation and human-centered innovation is so important in today's times. I'll also be talking about also an insight that I'll be giving you about yourself during today's talk, which you will find interesting, I hope. And towards the end, I will talk about business value of design, as well as how design thinking is being used. And I personally use with more than 50 companies in transforming themselves as well. So hopefully it should be a fun and engaging session today. And I would really encourage you to, when I ask some questions, please respond in the chat option right away, right? Don't just overthink it, just provide your answers. That should keep us going. Before we get started, I want to understand about the composition of all the participants here. So if you can write in the chat, where are you dialing in from? That will help me have a better view of where each of the person is. So we see Saman from Lahore. All right, and if you could mute yourselves as well, that will be awesome. Toronto, we see Houston, Peshawar, Islamabad, Karachi, all across the Pakistan region. Great, Canada, some folks from US, from East Coast as well. Awesome, that's great. Really love to have all of you here. Thank you very much. Also, maybe one more question. If you can write down about your professional current situation. Are you a professional working in an enterprise? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you a leader of a business? Are you a government employee? Are you a student? Anything, just to kind of, so that I have an understanding of where you are coming from. All right, we have product leaders, we have professionals, we have some CEOs as well, awesome. We have students. All right, cool. So kind of a mixed bag over here, entrepreneurs and business leaders and government sector and students. That's what I suspected. Some consultancy, business leader. Awesome, this is great. So I think we're getting warmed up. So one quick question. The next slide, we'll have a quick questions. Don't overthink it, just provide answers. All right. So those who are in the West Coast, if you want to go from San Francisco to LA, those on the East Coast, maybe New York to DC, or in Pakistan, Karachi to Lahore, write down what's the best way to go between these places. So if you're in Karachi, go to Lahore, what's the best way? If you're in San Francisco going to LA, just write down your answers. All right, cool. Air, road, drive. Okay. All right. Motorway, drive, air. All right. No, plane. Okay. Nobody likes trains, which is fine. Nobody likes buses. Okay. Cool. Well, the answer is it really depends on who is traveling and the context. So, for example, if I want to take my family to LA to visit Disneyland, I might take a minivan and then go there, drive it. If I have a business meeting in the afternoon, I'll probably take a morning flight, go there, take my meeting, and come back the same day. However, if I am a student strapped for cash, I might actually pony up and ride Greyhound or bus or train, right? And imagine if I got a job in LA, amazing opportunity, I'll have to move my entire family. I might to get a whole moving company involved. So the question was the same, but the answer really depended on who was traveling and what the context is. This is one of the key lessons I want to tell you. And that's where actually design thinking helps. Design thinking helps you understand, look at any question, any problem, but before you start solving that problem, you start asking who the problem affects, as well as what is the context of the user. That's what all design thinking is about. It's a little bit more, but I'll kind of do this. Before I do that, let me just give you a little bit of context why this is becoming so more important today. We all are aware of, and we read about, and we see the world is changing today. There are IoT devices happening. In our homes, we used to have like 1 or 2 devices in the past. Now we have like 20, 30, 40 devices all connected to the internet. We have networks, billions of people and millions of businesses connected through various platforms. And we have pretty much kind of infinite computing and storage accessible at everyone's fingertip through these cloud providers and these service providers. And that too at a blazingly fast speed on the mobile devices as well. Essentially, what we are seeing today is machines are delivering superior results than humans. Whether it used to be just a repetitive task, but it's more and more becoming relevant that machines are replacing a lot of tasks that humans were performing, even in where the cognitive abilities were used: legal research, contract analysis, medical publication summarization, news reporting. I think I saw somewhere that I think some of these sports reporting, that kind of is a special blip at the end of the matches over here. I think more than 40% are now generated automatically. Because essentially, if you think about it, it's like 2 teams were playing in a particular context. One team won, one team lost, and what was the score? And who was the star player? If you input all these information, essentially the whole news blip is automatically generated through AI. Even where we see from Tesla and other providers, driving is right around the corner, that we will have self-driving cars, self-driving flights, and all those kind of things. So a lot of heavily cognitive abilities that humans were really relying on have been replaced by machines. The other aspect is very important is when this Moore's law in 1960s said that every 18 months, the performance for the same price doubles, which is now actually, we are seeing a trend, which is actually the pace of innovation is so fast that every 6 months or less, we are seeing doubling of the performance. So what does that mean, actually? This means that we have to find ways to stay relevant. I would encourage you to read Yuval's books if you haven't already. But this is a profound statement that reflects the current situation that the world is facing. So what does that mean? What do we need? What do we need to have to stay relevant in today's environment? We do need to have creativity. We need to collaborate in a much more effective manner in person as well as across borders. And we need to focus on human centricity. If you just focus on technology, it's not going to cut it, because you will never be able to compete against machines and the new kind of comers. So that essentially means that we must innovate with a focus on human experience. So before I tell more about innovation, I would like to ask you another question, and I would encourage you to provide your answers over here. How do you define innovation? What exactly is innovation? So please go ahead and use chat to provide some answers. What do you see what innovation is? Building upon what already exists. All right. Innovation is attempting to try something new, solve problems. Yes. Any attempt? Yeah. Cool. Incremental improvements, application of creativity, making our lives easy, new ideas. Yep. Applying logic. Yeah, all of these are absolutely great, wonderful answers. And yeah, solving problems with new ways and all the ways, which is fine. Let me abstract it a little bit and give you an equation which you might be able to use in your organizations, in your aspects as well. Innovation is creativity times execution. There are a lot of creative artists, right? But they don't innovate. They provide amazing art, which really nourishes our souls. But what we need to do is we need to provide the creativity and combine that with execution. What do I mean by that? So let's focus on execution piece. Execution is something where a problem is clearly defined and you are able to solve that problem. And our schooling, our education, and our environment has trained us pretty well. That we have been given throughout our college, we are given a math problem, a world problem, depending on whether you're in middle school or high school or college, you are given a problem and you have to find a solution for it. That's where execution comes in. So the problem is known, and actually that you can apply your analytical powers to solve a lot of those problems, which is great, and we need that. But that's essentially the problem solving part. What's going to be important in today's days and future is the creativity aspect, where essentially what means is what kind of problems you want to find. So identifying the problem that others have not found yet. And I think that in fact leads to breakthrough innovations. And throughout history, and especially in the modern times, we have, and I'll share some of those examples as well, and you guys are well familiar with a lot of those examples, the ability for us to look at a situation from a different angle to find the problem so that you can then apply your execution hat and start solving it. If you can combine creativity with execution, that's what it means, bring innovation to market, right? Now, which means is creativity is becoming more and more important. So another question, quickly, tell me in your chat, are you creative or not? Yes or no? Quick answers. Come on, go ahead. All right, Faisal is not creative. All right, it depends. Yes, sometimes. Yes, depends. All right, cool. Yeah, I think everyone is. Yeah, well, art is good. All right, cool. All right. Now, another question. I mean, some people think that they are creative, some people think they don't. So especially those who think that they are creative, answer this question. Are you more creative than a 4-year-old? That's a little tricky now, right? Right? A lot of kind of folks say no, some says yes, which is awesome. And this is great. But what happened? I mean, where did your creativity go actually? So I think that's something that I think we have to ask ourselves. So any thoughts in terms of why do you think we are no more creative anymore? So to answer that question, let me, yeah, I mean, I'm limited constraints and we start challenging ourselves, questioning ourselves. So let me give you some insights over here, which will really make you feel at the end of the next slide is going to make you feel really good that how creative are we? So for this answers, let me take you back to 1960s when George Land was asked by NASA, he was a great American psychologist, to come up with a test to find out the most creative and innovative engineers at NASA for some special project. So he did that and they used it. But then what he did was he applied the same test to 5-year-old kids. He said, okay, let me see these kindergartners, 5-year-old kids. Can you guess what percentage of those kids came in the creative genius category, the highest category of creativity? Any guesses? What percentage of 5-year-old kids came out into a creative genius category? 70%? Zero? Oh, okay, interesting. 95%? 70 to 80%? All right. About 90? Okay. All right, 95. Yeah, cool. Well, let me share with you the answer. It was 98%. So imagine, pretty much odds are all of you were creative geniuses at some point, right? So what George did was he did not stop there. So what he did was after 5 years, he gave the same test to the same kids when they were 10 years old. Can you guess when they were 10 years old, how many of those kids came in the creative genius category? Any guesses? 60, 78, 25, 50. All right, it's a wide range, 68, 48. All right, here is the answer. Within 5 years, so in the elementary school, those kids, which were almost all creative geniuses, dropped to only a third of them remained creative geniuses. Now, he did not stop there. So what he did was he gave the same test to the same kids 5 years later when they were 15-year-old. Any guesses that how many? All right, so at this point, I can, a lot of people become so pessimistic, they started giving like single-digit answers. But I mean, you're kind of right, but about 12% of the the same kids came out to be in the category of creative geniuses. But he did one final thing. He gave the same test to a sample of adult population in US. Can you guess what percentage of adult US population, adults in general, came out to be in the creative genius categories? 5, 2, 2, 2. Yeah, it's 2%. So what I want you to do is just take the slide, think about it. 98% population was born creative geniuses. It's like almost like 100%, right? And then our education system, our culture, our family environment, whatever you want to call it, transformed that only 2% were able to retain their creativity. Now, these are the 2% who actually are the change makers, and they change the world, and the rest of the 98% actually follow. So what I want you to take, the lesson is, you are all creative geniuses. You just need to rediscover your inner creative genius. And I think we can do that. And let me give you one quick tip how you can do that. So whenever you're solving a problem or finding a problem, right, what you should do is, there are two aspects of it. One is divergent thinking, where essentially we are exploring, creating more choices. At this point, you are not applying your judgments. And then what you should do is, and let me just build out the slide, is whenever you're solving a problem or finding a problem to solve, what you should do is set up a separate meeting for brainstorming on, okay, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Or if you are solving the problem, how can we solve it? At that point, the focus should be generating as many ideas as possible to solve the problem, right? And at that point, there is no evaluation of feasibility, technical viability, or any kind of judgment, what are the merits of the full sole idea is to generate. And you can, within a 5% team, you can generate hundreds of ideas within half an hour. You'll be surprised how wacky the ideas come up and encouragement of that wacky ideas. And then you kind of break that session. Everybody starts kind of thinking, simmering those ideas, and then come back separately later on to see how they can combine different ideas, and then do this convergent thinking, where essentially you're applying the practical realities. What is technically feasible? What has business viability, and so on and so forth? Which one will make sense, and so on and so forth. So I think it's so important for you. Just this one tip, and this is George kind of gave in his talk, and I would encourage you to watch that on YouTube, is you can just, if you can apply this at the time of your brainstorming, break the brainstorming into two halves. One is generation of ideas. The second one is evaluation. I think you will see the quality of your ideas improve significantly, which essentially, it will also give you creative confidence to really have newer ideas going forward. And here, design thinking can help. So what is design thinking? So design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation, which focuses on the needs of people. And then it's not just focusing on the needs of people, it brings the possibilities of technology and try to see which of the new experiences are going to have business value. This is the one famous kind of version. You must have seen it somewhere, focusing on desirability from users' angle, then bringing the technical aspects, and then trying to see which one is viability. It's not just building better experiences, it's those experiences which are technically doable and provides business value and fits in the context of the user. So that's kind of on a high level, that conceptual part. Every problem that you're solving, ask who the problem is for, what is that person's concept or that persona's context, then try to see from your technologist team that how can we solve that problem from technical to quick prototyping, and then trying to see whether there is business merit as well. Breaking it further down, design thinking. What exactly is mean? When David and Tom Kelly, the founder of IDEO and Stanford D School, they kind of coined this term several decades back. What does that mean actually? So design essentially means form, how it looks, how it feels, but also function. What purpose does it serve and how useful it is? A lot of times when in the business context design is used, a lot of business folks think about design as just a visual component. That's just the graphic design part. I'm not talking about that. It's the essence of what is the function it's serving and then how good it feels. The other part is the thinking, which is creative and business together. I mentioned that creativity is so important. That's where design thinking and the tools and techniques helps encourage and bring the creativity aspect, but it brings it together with the business thinking. So if you think about it, creative business thinking is about rational, logical, stable, right? And what is a business value? On the other hand, creative thinking is emotional, iterative, it's explorative, it's novel, it's eyeing for novelty. So if you bring these two together and then enable it in a form that really serves the need of the user in a delightful manner, that's what design thinking does. In fact, design thinking is kind of an oxymoron because it's much more focused on doing. So I would rather kind of say that it's not design thinking, it's actually design doing, because the emphasis on action rather than just thought and presentation over here. But that's a kind of a high level part. A quick quote from Don Norman, he's a great leader in this space, is really it's a method of finding the right problems and then enabling new creative ways of solving those problems. So going a little bit one level deeper, so how can you actually do this? The first part is that whenever you have an idea or a problem to solve, narrow down on who are the users. I'll give you one quick example. I was doing a workshop with 3 startups several years back. And the first part was, I had a kind of a framework. I said, okay, just write down who is the problem for and what is the need that your idea is solving. And especially, I remember one of the startups, the 2 co-founders, they could not agree on who the actual users will be for their idea. It's so important. You just do this exercise, and I'll show you some examples of how you can gain empathy with the users. But I think that's so important. Having the full focus from a wider lens to the narrow lens in terms of who the users are and what is the problem you're trying to solve. And then when you have understood the problem to solve, then you move into an iterative experimentation to really try to see how you can solve that problem through prototypes and others. So if you just combine these two, and you can apply the divergent and convergent thinking principles on both problem finding part on the left side, as well as problem solutions. Some of the key skills that you should leverage in that aspect is user research is so important. It becomes, there are many aspects. So you have both qualitative user research, where actually you spend time building empathy, putting yourself into the shoes of the users, as well as quantitative. There are many different platforms and tools that you can use to have insights into how your users are actually using your applications or your solutions. So you're combining both. And then user research discipline applies it for both generative as well as evaluative. What I mean by that is generative is much more strategic, much more exploratory. So you don't have some idea, you just have a hunch and you're just exploring that space. Versus you already have a prototype or a product and you want to evaluate whether that works for the user or not. So both can be used for that. And then on the right side, it's all about experimentation. So you build quick prototypes, you measure whether they're working or not, and then you iterate over it. And that kind of, in a nutshell, brings the design thinking part together over here. Quick examples. These are from some of my previous engagements as well. Essentially, if you are solving a problem for a foreman or a truck driver, you have to go and spend time with him or her, right? Understand what the user's day in the life of is. So this was a project that our team did many years back around the retail delivery for a large ice cream manufacturer, and then trying to see what they have to go through when they are picking up those boxes and delivering in retail, and then what kind of tools they're using, and then how can you improve their experience. You have to do a lot of ride-along. So you can see, so this was another project in which we were working with a consumer products company, trying to understand how users view what is the need from nutrition, from fitness, from health, and then how when they go grocery shopping, how they actually users do that. We actually go to their homes as well, the user research team, to understand what kind of information folks in the home they are actually looking at. So the whole point is that you bring those insights from the field, spending time with the users, into a room where you lay it all out there to really synthesize that. And then you start going towards ideation, right? And those ideation, and the important one of the key disciplines of design thinking is bias towards action. Don't just talk about, hey, we can have like an application with this form, with this entry, this flow. You just take a piece of paper and a pen and then start drawing it out, right? Now, there's a lot of talk about collaborative spaces. It's becoming fun and cool, and we were like using that like 10 plus years back as well, and in our roles as well, which is awesome to have. Now with COVID, the situations are changing, and these collaboration rooms are becoming a little risk factor over here. But the point is, this is an example of one of the clients that we work with in government, and the furnitures were not movable, but we converted the walls with charts into a collaborative environment. But if you have the right people, if you know the process, you can convert any place into a collaborative space. Again, experimentation through prototyping. The first prototyping is just the best prototype is on a piece of paper and a pen. And this is the initial prototype of the project that we did, which actually won 2 awards, 1 Red Dot Awards down the line as well. So just the power of experimentation and prototyping. Prototyping does not need to be fancy. That's the whole point. It's just a rough prototype to convey the idea. Showing is more important than just presenting and talking about it, right? And this is another example from some of the workshops that our team did to really explain. And each of this paper that you see on the top left side, these are scenes that how the user's experience would be. Before that, you need to understand who the users were. So you would have already done the user research and brought those insights in. As you kind of evolve your prototype, you don't have to wait till the final finished product to get feedback from the users. So we brought in users and got the feedback on the rough paper-based prototypes, several versions, and then got their input in terms of what's working, what's not working. And then you can use different tools as well. But the aspect of storytelling becomes so important to convey your vision. You have done the user research, you have done some prototyping iteration, but you want to convey that research to your business and technology stakeholders and investors. And I think you can use a lot of storytelling techniques to be able to do that. And then as you iterate, then you end up towards delightful experiences, which is essentially what the user gets to experience using their devices and so on and so forth. And I'm more focused on the digital side, but there is whole physical aspects. So some of those experiences go from digital to physical. So you need to really understand the nuances around that. So that was all kind of why this design thinking is really important, and some of these concepts which apply, and why this is important because we are living in an experience economy right now. And as the next couple of slides are from John Maeda. So I would encourage you to check his work as well. Amazing design leader. Previously, we used to work on desktop, then laptops, but now everybody is carrying with a smartphone. So essentially, the user's experience is right there in their pockets. So you need to think about how you want to enable the experience for your business, for your users. Here are some numbers that on businesses and enterprises, they are looking at personalized customer experience as the top 3 priority in the boardrooms. They are looking at 90% of the executives agree that customer experience and engagement are objectives of their organization. And then more importantly, if you see on the right side, customers are more willing to forgive mistakes and overlook mistakes at a much more higher rate if they have a better experience with the company. Some other numbers, and this is a few years dated slide, and now it must be more than 50 design firms which have been acquired by many enterprises, management consulting firms, etc. We see a trend in designers as co-founders in VC-backed startups. We're also seeing that a lot of emphasis on design in the investor community is taking shape. Quick, running a little late over here, but just to give me like 5 more minutes, hopefully, is all this is good, but it is also yielding business results. So there are 2 sources that I'll be sharing. The first one is Design Management Institute. This is still a few years old slide, but what they did was they looked at companies which are more kind of design focused. They have an approach towards defining which companies are design led versus not. And you can see that those companies which are design centric, they have superior market performance, more than 200% compared to the S&P. McKinsey did a holistic across their companies. They did this analysis and they created this McKinsey Design Index. And based on that, if you look at companies which are in the top quartile on the McKinsey Design Index, they beat their peers significantly, both on revenue as well as on return to shareholders. So this is serious. This is yielding business results, and a lot of companies are focusing on that. There's tons of press out there on why the importance of design and design thinking is gaining traction in technology and business side. So the final section of my presentation today is more on where I've also used design thinking to help transform more than 50 enterprises across the world, across varying different industries in different levels of maturity. But I think, so some kind of, I thought it's important because a lot of folks are in enterprises and business and government as well, that you should have these concepts in mind when you are helping transform your businesses. So why there's a need to transform businesses? In free market economies, creative destruction is the essence of innovation, right? And what does that mean? That a newcomer enters the industry, which has been there for decades or even centuries, and then they solve the problems in a different way, which disrupts the existing industry, right? So here are some of the logos. You are well familiar with that. And that is creating that creative destruction. A lot of you might be familiar with this S-curve. So every organization, every idea, every product follows this. Initially, you're doing prototyping. You find innovators who wants to try it out. And then as soon as you find your product market fit, you cross the chasm, and then you take advantage of the superior growth. But at some point, it starts plateauing over time. It used to be taking 40 years, 50 years for enterprises to really reach that plateau. Now it's taking 10 years, even less than 5 years in several industries. So we are seeing, and even in a couple of years, we see kind of ideas and products rise up, and then they kind of hit the plateau. And at that point, there are only two options. Either you can transform yourself, or you will just decline. So there are some examples over here with companies which have transformed themselves into more newer cloud-based offerings. And then history is full of other companies which have just really were not able to catch up or compete with this force of creative destruction. So incumbents are facing that disruption. And during my work with a lot of companies, when I spoke with a lot of executives, they were focused on, hey, how can we transform our business model? How can we move from product to service? How can we move from wholesale to a direct-to-consumer model, or from a one-time sale perpetual license to a direct-to-consumer? And how can we take advantage of digital platform, and so on and so forth. Even the value proposition themselves were being disrupted with this change. The other segment of the executives were focused on technology. Well, how can I leverage cloud? How can I leverage machine learning, AI? How can I leverage IoT and other aspects to really transform ourselves? And essentially, my message to them was, why don't you focus on the customer experience first? Both your existing customers as well as your new and evolving customer segments. Understand what are the changing behavioral needs for your customers, and then look at which technologies and which business model would support that experience, rather than you go from business model and technology. And you can see the theme over here. Again, to focus on desirability, then bring technology and business model, not the other way around. So this is one of the framework that our team created for one of our clients, was focus on the customer experience, do the user research, understand, build that future narrative out, then look at organizational capabilities, what kind of capabilities you need, and then try to understand what kind of implications that has, what kind of initiatives you need to take, considering people, process, and technology. And I tell you, technology is the easiest part. The most difficult part is people and process. So this slide is probably the final one with content, is any company which is looking to transform, it has to be a C-level initiative with board approval. You cannot drive from middle management at all. So driving from the top is so important. You need to build skills and capabilities and muscles to really have customer insights on a regular basis, a channel through which you can do it. It's not easy as it sounds. You need to bring those new expertise and new capabilities to have customer insights. You need to be data-driven in decision-making. A lot of enterprises are sitting on a lot of tons of data trapped in their enterprise platforms, but they are not harnessing that data in the manner they should be. Also, this new customer insights will feed into that, and then that's where the importance of a data platform is so important. The other part is that you should be looking for automation of the processes. A lot of companies, I see that they have these complex processes. There is no need for that. You can simplify those processes and automate them so that you can focus on customer experience and data-driven decision making. And the final part is, and this is another skill, is the experimentation. You need to be comfortable with experimenting. Future is uncertain. Nobody knows what works and what doesn't work. And I think that's where what you need to do. And if you can bring this together, that's what a successful transformation are the underpinning. And as you can probably glean from here, it is more of a cultural change and a mindset shift in an organization rather than a business shift or a technology or any other aspect. So again, focusing on customer experience, leveraging technology, building these skills to help drive the cultural and mindset shift over there. And if you don't have the initiative done at the top level, the transformations efforts would not succeed, essentially. So that's a key point. So that was kind of all the content. I will point you out to, last year I did a 5-part series, 90-minute each session. If you really want to go deeper into design thinking and understand the different phases and some frameworks and tools, you check out my book as well, and also check out the series that is available online for everyone to take advantage of. And then final slide is essentially about you have to have the creative confidence to start up getting your hands dirty or applying it. It's not theoretical, it's application. And I think you need to kind of be able to bring this, find folks who are experienced in this, work with them, see how you can bring in your organization, in your teams. I think you will see amazing results coming out of that. So with that, that was all. I think, 40 minutes. So we have 20 more minutes for any question and answer. And I will kind of stop sharing at this point and address any questions that you guys might have. All right, so I have stopped sharing. And if you want to just unmute yourself to ask any questions, feel free. Or if there were any questions on the chat, I'll try to see if there is anything. Yeah, so there was one question around somebody who's focused on the technical design aspects for their career. To what extent do you believe they should be involved in design research process, non-technical aspects? Well, I tell you one thing, any technology that you are focusing on, if it is not solving a customer problem, that technology will not see the light of the day. I see so many endeavors which are technically driven, but they don't solve the problem. So it's, as a technical leader inside your organization, always asking those questions about how what you are doing links to the business value and how it improves the customer experience. I think you will see that not only will you gain prominence, but your ideas will have more ability to be influenced across the business and other side over there. So you probably wouldn't want to be involved in the user research part as much, but you want to be involved in understanding what are the user needs after when the research come in. So you can, I think, have like a discussion with them, look at their insights, and then trying to link your technological initiative to how that improve their customer experience. You will see that you become a very go-to person from technical team to really have a lot of leaders will be bringing you in the business conversations often. Another question was around how design thinking being implemented in any public sector entities such as state-owned enterprises. Yes, absolutely. So we did many engagements with several government institutions across the world, not just US, but in South America as well as Asia and Europe. And design thinking is bringing citizen centricity to a lot of governments. They are focusing on building experiences, especially I think a lot of folks are from Pakistan over here. You see that I tell you, I applied for NICOP and POC for my kids online. I did not have to go to the consulate over here. I think that's an application of design thinking, so making it easy for citizens to do the business with the government, right? Whatever needs we have. And that is happening. The other part that is happening is governments are beginning to use the power of data to find out where they need to channel resources to solve citizens' problem. And they are driving those decisions based on what are the compelling problems from the citizens' part. And also kind of enabling more insights to the citizens. So I think that's citizen centricity. I did a talk a couple of years back. I was invited to a lot of Pakistani government officials were there as well. And in that talk, towards the end, I said, I would encourage you to just go each one. These were like bureaucrats and some of the ministers and others. I said, okay, in whichever area you are in, without your protocol, just spend 2 hours in front of the office that your ministry serves and just observe what the citizens have to go through. Those 2 hours, you will gain so many insights that you would never gain if you kind of just rely on official reports and so on and so forth. So I think that's something which I think those governments which are sincere, they are kind of becoming more citizen-centric. All right, the question is from Faisal, why always drive from the top? The only reason is that resources and cultural transformation across the business units. A lot of these enterprises, I'll tell you one example, and this is a famous example. Do you know which company invented the digital camera? It was Kodak. And Kodak is out of the picture. The thing was, because the executives did not see the future, they considered themselves as a chemical company, not a company which helps create memories through photo. If they had seen that, they would have pivoted to the new technology of digital much earlier, and the things would have been much different. So a lot of initiatives, ideas come in from middle management. And if there is no top level funding and realization and the OKRs at the executive level, those initiatives do not see any, because the momentum of the existing mindset is just so strong that those changes do not really see any fruit. Okay, I'm just going through the question. If anybody wants to just ask any live questions, feel free to do so.
Hi, my name's Maliha. I'd like to ask a live question, if I may.
Yeah, please, Maliha.
Okay, so you said something interesting that you had actually experienced the design transforming companies and taking them to the next level, and at different stages of development. For you, in your experience, what has been the most easy, I shouldn't say easy, but more easier done, and the more challenging in terms of life cycle of a company? That at which point have you found the firms more able to adapt, change mindset, and become more digitally savvy and use technology, whereas it's been more challenging in perhaps another phase of the company? Could you give us this insight, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's, I probably won't have like a black and white answer. I mean, a typical answer is like, I think it varies quite considerably. What I have seen differentiate companies which have transformed themselves successfully, or at least in the right direction, versus those who haven't, I think a couple of things came in handy. One was, I think, the understanding and commitment from the leadership. If the leadership was open, and I think it has become easier for those companies to really drive the change, because they are able to build the case for the board as well, because this does require a lot of resource investment. And if it's a public company, they need to I'm just kind of turning my camera back on. I think I was getting blurry here. Yes. So I think they need to kind of inform a lot of times the markets as well. So I think that is one of the key aspects, which also requires, it does require a cultural and mindset shift. So you need to not just say that what we are going to change, but why that is important. So, and that also from leadership all the way down, bringing the right new people who bring fresh ideas with new skills and with the right mindset. And a lot of people in these companies are with the company for 10, 20 years, and they don't want to change. And change is hard. But if they believe in why the change is necessary, the other kind of one final point is successful transformations have focused on people and finding the influencers within different functions and then getting them on board in the front end of it. I think that really then shows importance. And you do have to channel resources. So if you just keep it as like a nice little experiment without much commitment from financial side, you won't see that success. So we'll continue to gain your business for the first next few years, but then the competitive forces will be strong that you won't have the sufficient working capital to transform yourself. So it's better to, if you remember that S curve, if you wait to reach to the top and then start transformation, you're already too late. You probably are towards the closer, higher point of the growth curve, and then you transform yourself. I think you have a better chance of success. Abdul Sami, you wanna go ahead next?
Yeah, sure. So I just wanted to ask that in an environment or in a market where there's so much competition, right, for a given product. So what is that one thing that motivates you to keep going and creating new ideas rather than probably like saying no, I'm done with this, etc. Thank you.
I think it's more of, especially in my org, my teams, I am not the idea generator. I am one of the idea generators. You want to create an environment where your team is empowered to bring about insights about the customers, about internal processes and ideas forward. So it's not that the idea is the responsibility of the leader. The ideas are the responsibility for the team. So you need, and that's why I said the cultural transformation is so important, that the teams feel empowered. Most of the time, folks who are at the front lines of the business know the customer challenges, know the dynamics changing the earliest. And if you can somehow channel those insights and ideas, I think you have a better chance of success.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I think the key part is every one of us, we go through this aspect. Some people are born kind of in a way that they are comfortable with change and unlearning and relearning and learning new things and questioning their own pre-held beliefs. We have to kind of bring that and build that skills ourselves so that we are not threatened by any new change or any kind of pre-held ideas that were true 5 years back and being challenged now with the new data. Be open to change. I think that's very important. Be comfortable with change. All right, so another interesting question comes is, as technology has already reduced millions of jobs for humans, where do you think us in 100 years? What will humans do, earn when, okay. I can't even tell you next 5 years, and you're asking about 100 years. So that's an interesting question. The thing is, if you look at what the Industrial Revolution has done, and now the Information Revolution over the last, I would say 100 to 200 years. 200 years back, 98% of the human population was busy in agriculture. They were busy in growing food for survival. Now, only 2% actually are busy in agriculture and growing food. What has happened to the remaining 98%? What happened? There were new industries created, new technologies created, new businesses created, new opportunities, new skills were needed, right? New inventions were made. So what the only thing happened is, and the jobs that were created are 100 times more in number than the jobs 200 years back. So I foresee the same. I think this is a new previously in our previous generation, or maybe our grandparents' generation, you could kind of go to school, build a skill in one area, and have a good life, 40, 50 years of working life without doing any change, right? But now what we are seeing is that every one of us will have 5 to 6 careers in our lifetimes. So that means we will need to learn and relearn and unlearn a lot of things with the changing times, because the creative destruction, the pace at which it's happening is just so accelerated. Every 5, 10 years, your knowledge of the past is no more relevant, right? So I think that's the only thing. I would encourage you to check out these books. One was by Hans Rosling. It's called The Factfulness, I think, something like that. And it tells you about the kind of amazing progress human race has made. It's also Steven Pinker's books are great. You will see and you will become an optimist after that. In every aspect, in the last 200 plus years, humans have improved in our livelihoods, in our lives, in our ability to educate ourselves and have a better quality of life. So I only see that what this technological revolution will do is relieve us from doing mundane so that we can focus on a lot of creative endeavors. All right. So another question was, you mentioned 2% creative geniuses remain in adults based on the insight. Any insight on what characteristics were common in them? I think some insights. Obviously, there's a lot of work from psychologists who are better able to answer this question. But what I understood is the difference between how children think and how we adults think is that children do not have perceived notion of what works, what doesn't work. They do not worry about sharing their ideas. If they have a bottle of water, they transform that into a spaceship and then they start flying into space, go to moon, right? They don't worry about others judging them. What happens is that when we become adults, not just other adults judge us, but we start judging our own selves. So if a new idea comes in, and if you think about a lot of companies are based on challenging the basic assumptions. Uber and Lyft is one example. If I were to ask you that, hey, would you hitchhike with a stranger in his car? Nobody would say 15 years back that that's a good idea. But now one of the top valued companies are built on that ideas. If I were to say, hey, would you allow a stranger to come and live in your living room for a night? Well, people would have just laughed out. We have Airbnb and many other companies around that. So if you think about challenging those assumptions is so important. I think if we can, so those 2% people are able to somehow retain their ability to challenge assumptions, not be worried about judgments of others, move their ideas forward relentlessly, and then a lot of followers kind of help them achieve their visions. Right, I'm just going through some of the questions. If you have any questions live, we have like 3 more minutes, so we can go through that. Well, there's a question around how to be a design thinking professional. Well, to me, design thinking is a skill that everybody should be like learning and applying in their roles. So there are obviously some design thinking professionals, but you should be like thinking about taking design thinking as a profession. How you should be thinking is it's an approach to solve problems, find problems and solve problems from a human-centered approach. And a lot of these concepts, if you start applying to your existing role, you will see the amazing effectiveness that you will achieve. So that's how I would kind of look at that. Yeah, systems thinking, another question on systems thinking and design thinking processes. Yeah, system thinking is much more kind of holistic and which kind of helps in looking at the bigger picture. Design thinking helps narrow down on specific users' problems, right? So that's how you need to bring both together to be able to move forward. Well, another question is, how do you know that you have found the right problem to solve? Well, you only know when your customer says yes, this is the right problem. And actually, you have like a hunch. And then through prototyping, you test and validate. So through prototyping, you would know whether you are heading to the right direction or not. Well, if you're a beginner designer, you're already kind of swimming, I think, to a certain extent. So I will continue. I encourage you to continue in that area. Okay. Is design thinking is all about user experience? UX is a subset of it. Yeah, I think it has been used to improve the user experience part, but it is a tool for innovation. And as I've shown as well, that it is the tool to transform businesses as well. So yeah, UX is one application of it. Okay, there's a question around how can design thinking be applied in a social innovation context? Yeah, I think there are, I think, plenty of examples to go around over here. The important part of design thinking is it's about humans. And when you talk about social innovation, it's about improving the lives of humans. Now, if you're in a business context, you are providing better experience so that they can take advantage of the value that your business is delivering. If you apply that to improve lives through, I would say, social forums or charitable organization, that's your focus, but you can apply it. The important part of design thinking was, I think in social innovation, some example, and you'll be able to find a lot of examples on Google as well, is I believe there was a team which was solving either in India's remote villages where infants were dying because they did not have incubators available for at risk. So what the team of design thinkers and designers did was they look at, okay, what they can do. So I think in one example, they created using and what they found was, okay, incubators are expensive. But in those areas, there are a lot of mechanics and they fix a lot of old cars. So they use the old motorcycle or car engines to generate heat and then created that. It's a very cost-effective solution to provide incubation. In another example, they actually, what they did was they created a blanket that could be kept warm. So, and they found that when they did the prototyping, if you cover the a child, an infant, in a warm blanket, and they provided that kind of quick mechanism to warm the blanket right in their homes, they were able to save a lot of lives over there. So there are plenty of examples. All right, so I hope that I've given some examples around the practical use of design thinking. I think this is, as I said, I think throughout history, innovators and entrepreneurs have intuitively used design thinking to solve business problems. And I think this is just a codification of it and application of it. So yeah, I think it's essentially the application. I would say that a lot of kind of successful companies have used that, whether they call it explicitly design thinking or not, intuitively they all use to solve problems. All right, so I think we are getting towards the end. If there is a question live, I'll take one final question and then we'll wrap it up. If not, then I thank you very much for spending your weekend with me. I hope you found some of the ideas shared useful. All right, Ali, I think we are ready to close now.
Thank you so much. Just one last question is, could you type your, is there a way for people to connect with you? Like, is there like a website? And
I shared that, mashhoodalam.com. You can go there. You can search my name on LinkedIn. You can connect or there as well. So yeah, feel free to connect with me and I'll be happy to stay connected and answer any questions.
Thank you so much. I think that's great. Thank you for your time, Mashhood bhai. It was a pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Ali, for the invite and everyone for joining. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.